What's going on, everybody? Doc here, Average Gamer Guys, back again. More Last Day on Earth action. And today, a video, probably a little bit of a shorter video, especially compared to the last handful. This is something I've been asked to do a handful of times. I do think it's interesting to see other player bases loadouts and how they've built and kind of the progression they're at. So I figured I'd give you a quick tour of the home base, how we have things set up, what I am focused on. You have seen a lot if you've paid attention to the channel or been around a handful of videos. You know that we're continuing to work on our settlement. We're also continuing to work on some main base modifications, although not a whole ton. Really, storage space has become really the only thing that I'm focused on, and mainly I'm focused on the settlement as well as grinding really Port Laboratory. It's probably the only location that I've been doing consistently to try to continue to gain rep points there and maximize that. We really want to get to the medicine cabinet, so I'm hopeful we can go ahead and do that. So today's video, I'm just going to jump in, be pretty chill. I'm going to walk through the base. I'm going to talk through some things. A couple of things I want to say up front, though, just to get out in the stratosphere of the internet, is that I'm doing this because I hope that you can see, if you are starting out or you're just getting going, base building can be a lot of fun. It also can be a place where you can spend a ton of resources and then ultimately lose a lot of resources when you go to make modifications to that. I can't tell you how many times I rebuilt my base, how many times I've destroyed walls and re-put them up. And that certainly can add to the grind. So I do think it's important, and I'll talk through a little bit of how my base was originally set up and how I was able to kind of allow myself to do raiding as well as get into and secure at least the important stuff like weapons and meds and gear and armor. So I'll talk through that a little bit and hopefully give you a handful of ideas on how you can set your base up for success. I will say this, since this is a single player game, you can set your base up however you so choose. But I'll talk about a handful of things that will be helpful for you, especially if you are trying to progress, trying to raid, which can be a really great opportunity to pick up some fantastic gear. I also just want to say again, if you're new to the channel, you're just checking this out, or maybe you've stopped into a video or two, I've played this game for a really, really long time. So I know there is this inclination where you want to grind gear, and some folks have a lot, some folks don't have as much. There's certainly some strategies around doing that I've thought about, and we'll actually probably start doing a series on the channel here to talk about some of the basics of the game and how to gain gear, how to get through some of the locations and some things like that. So drop in a comment if you'd like to see something like that. Just really going off of my experience and what has worked for me. But I just want to say that up front. I've played this game for a really long time, many, many years on and off. Getting back into it with the recent settlement update and some other updates that I've seen that have come through, and I've been excited about the game again. And I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. This isn't like something we got to very quickly. Again, we've played this game for years, so much so that the grind for the chopper is really when I kind of got into the game. And that was that was the first vehicle that was ever introduced. Like I just gotten into the game not long after Bunker Alpha had been opened up, and so I've seen the progression of that and how the game has changed over that whole period of time, and that's a long time. So sorry for the long intro, but I just want to put that up front there. I certainly hope you know I'm not trying to show off or do any things like that. I'm just trying to hopefully give you some tips, and again, this has been requested, so hopefully this is interesting for some of you to see the progress that we made it to. So let's get into this. The first thing I'm going to tell you up front here, and one of the best things that you can get to at the very, very top end, is getting to steel walls. So what you're going to see here up at the front is that we have basically just about the entire base full, the entire layout full of the base. For me, I like that. I like to have a lot of openness in the base. I like to have a ton of space to move benches around and do different things. I don't like to be running. Personally, I don't like to run through a lot of doors, although that is a great strategy early on if you are working towards being able to raid. So you're going to see we basically just have a very open layout here. It's one really, really large square, and we are completely stacked up and full on steel walls. Now, At this point in the game, because there's no metal cutter, we're not worried about raids. We're not worried about anybody breaking in. If that ever gets introduced, we're going to have a lot of upgrading to do. And I've actually considered starting to get to some of that with stone and all of those other things. So do just keep that in mind. But we've essentially used up, again, a pretty good portion of the base. We have our dog kennel here and our chopper here in the back. We do have some woods and some other fun things that I've just been just growing and building, and then a lot of our food and water supplies and those workbenches and craftable things over here. So obviously, as well, if you're not familiar, we do have the ATV built. We obviously have the chopper up. I have the boat complete as well, so do just kind of keep that in mind. We have a couple of fun trophies over here. The most recent Halloween event up, the witch's statue, the blind one, that cool statue with that guy. This is my raid sacrifice chest. So if you are looking at getting into raiding or starting to raid, I do recommend, if you can put something out there that can easily be attacked, even if you have just level 3 stone walls, this is a great opportunity. Put a handful of things in it. Circuit board is usually enough. Spare some other parts. The wiki has a great guide of what these are all costed to. This is pretty normal for me, what I get, and I've been really successful in raids. But let me take you section by section here, and we'll just kind of dissect and go through the base. Now, the other thing I want to pay attention to is you can see I have these sections of steel floors. Essentially, these used to be compartmentalized areas of the base, and where I started actually with a secure base was just this small section of steel right here, right? So you have to kind of follow the cursor. But essentially inside this small section of steel, I had walls, steel walls built up. I had stone walls around the rest of the base, and I essentially put all of my meds, my armor, and my weapons in crates inside of this section. For me, personally, that was very, very successful. Now, we lattice worked, so we built some lattice work. We built some kind of walls inside of walls inside of walls with a whole bunch of doors on this perimeter. As we kind of continued to upgrade the base, but at the outset, especially first kind of getting things built up and getting to steel and getting the opportunity to do that, this is all we had, and it was very, very successful for me. We kept all of our really important loot secured. We never had guns or meds or anything stolen from us. And then the nice part for us is we started to expand. So you're going to see this next section here. We built another row of those out. Then we kind of continued to build. Then we got to an exterior wall, and we were able to kind of build around here, connect some things together. Then we were basically able to section this portion off, and you could kind of just get an idea of how I steadily grew my steel walls out from my base. And then finally I said, you know what? Let's just do the full thing. We went all the way around, compartmentalized everything, got everything built up. And this is where we're sitting at. We have a ton of free space because the ATV is done. And that's kind of how we have the base set up. So you can do a very similar thing with wood and then stone and just kind of continue to build your walls up. But make sure you have a good core center where you can keep some good supplies and your important things that you've been kind of collecting and grinding and wanting to hang on to. You don't have to worry about this at all if you don't raid, but if you do raid, which I do highly recommend, because again, the loot there can be fantastic. If you get to that point and you're able to do that, then you definitely want to make sure that your stuff is protected, and this is a good way to do it. So I'll start at the top corner of the base here. On the inside, we just have some random stuff, some turrets set. And then for me personally, how I like to set up the flow of my base is I like to have workbenches near chests that hold the things that go in the workbenches and try to keep everything somewhat organized where it's all similar and near each other. So this section here is obviously our 2 metal workbenches. We have our refined furnaces and our normal furnaces here. Here in these 3 black crates is essentially all of our materials that we would do and make with furnaces for the most part. So we have our metals, we have our charcoal, we have our refined metals here. So a whole lot of stuff inside of these. That's obviously our best one with all of our steel. And then we have all of our other crafting materials down here, bauxite, our aluminum wire, all that good stuff for copper ore, and our quartz if we want to go ahead and make some things there. Again, we've built up every workbench that we have possible. I do recommend that. I think that's a good avenue because at some point you are going to be using a lot of these things, right? Normally we're burning and making steel at this point, but I've been kind of stockpiling charcoal for the time being. So, and we're almost always making iron. Iron is super, super important, used in so many things, especially really top tier weapons. So we're building that up. Here is our wonderful weapon bench, modifications and weapons. You guys know what that's all about. And then next to all of our metals here, obviously we have our two meds, two med benches, medical tables here where we can make basically alcohol, which is pretty good, especially if you're going to make some med kits. We have our fridge, which is absolutely awesome. I love this thing. This was a great addition to be able to stockpile a bunch of food. Essentially, we have food and meds here, and then premium top end supplies, and I'll get to that here. So a chest dedicated to food, a chest dedicated to all of our meds. We've been upgrading this one pretty consistently. You can see we're at rack level 3 here for that to get some good storage. And then we get into probably two of my favorite chests inside of this whole thing, which is this bad boy and this bad boy, which is essentially all of our weapon modifications and kind of top end type materials. So you see we got rubber, we got pipes in here, we got a whole bunch of factory parts, we got some drone parts in here, we got some springs. This is where I stockpile essentially all of my really, really good materials that we need for either weapon upgrades or any of that kind of stuff, in addition to just some really good supplies that we want to hang on to. So this has taken a long time to get here, many runs of many different bunkers and crates and things like that, but that's been nice that we've been able to build this up. Next to this, we have our junk repository, which we actually just recently picked up from the Forlorn Fair. Super excited about that. And then we essentially have what I like to call my breakdown crate. This also kind of becomes like my just trash crate, if you will, like if I just need somewhere to put a whole bunch of things, but or overflow for some other things. But essentially anything that we want to break down here is going to drop inside of this crate right next to our two recyclers. I got a question about this on a recent video. The reason I have two recyclers is back in the day, you could essentially make a small purchase and you could get a second one. I don't know if it's still available in the store, but we grabbed it when we had the opportunity to. I am happy that I did get it. If you have an opportunity to get it and you are willing to spend some money, this actually is a pretty useful workbench to get two of, because think about it. If you're burning weapons or you're doing batteries or whatever the case may be, you essentially can double the output for the same amount of time, which can be really nice, especially to get some good supplies, get some steel, get some other, really useful materials out of these things. So consider that. Again, I don't know if it's possible or not, but that's what we got. Back here, we have basically just our paint cabinet. And then right here, we have kind of like my drone parts / anything that I want to use for our wonderful acid bath here. So we have all of those supplies, a few top end things, some propellers, and essentially all of our drone parts are sitting in this one at this point. We've also got a stockpile of cards if these ever become usable, which I doubt, but that is where they're at. We've got our bookshelf here, stock full of coupons. I love me some coupons. This is how you gain gear in this game, truly. And I'm going to talk about that probably in a future video, but that's really cool. We've got our fireplace here, which is actually pretty cool to be able to get some charcoal. So if we wanted to run that, we've obviously got a radio. We've got some I'm not a big decoration person, but we've got a few here, which is pretty cool. And we're dropping down. So this then essentially becomes kind of like our just our supply area, as well as anything related to the chopper or vehicles. So we've got a cabinet full of gas here, and just a whole bunch set up and ready to go. I do hope Forlorn Fair comes back and we're able to get that gas container. From what I've seen, it is super, super helpful, so I'm gonna really be excited about that. You can essentially fuel your vehicles from that thing too, which is just like a great quality of life thing that I saw as well. So hopefully we can get that. That would certainly save us some space. This essentially is all of our chopper parts, engine parts, some extra gas. We got some transmissions. So we've just got a handful of things here that are kind of related to that. And then obviously our circuit boards. This next set, these nine shelvings here are basically all just different spare loot stuff, right? So spare parts, all those kinds of things. And I kind of have them dedicated typically to one. So again, we've got just a rack full of wires. We've got another rack full of wires because you need a lot of wires. We've got turret parts and sensors. We've got a whole bunch of glue, tape, more glue, ball bearings, rubber. This is essentially all over the wheels. We are working through to dissect basically and recycle down a bunch of these. So I'm going to get to probably like 2 rows of each, I think is enough just to hang on to just in case. Another kind of random, but mostly bolts container, and then mostly just our transistors, a handful of other things. So do I think you need to hang on to all this stuff? No, I do not. No, I do not, absolutely. But anytime we see a big update or anything is added, I will tell you, for me personally, it's been very nice to come back in after not having played for a while, get into the settlement, and just have a lot of that basic stuff already ready to go, where we could drop it off and we could jump right into it. So I am personally happy about that. It is a little bit of a pain to stay organized. We don't grab that stuff very often anymore. If we do have it, we will bring it back and drop it in. But we've dedicated these crates to be able to do that. So now we essentially get into probably the row that most people want to see, which is our weapons and our armor. So here we have some med supplies, kind of our pullover for our Genesis weapons, and then we have all of our supplies. Got a different video coming up for this, so don't mind those too much. But essentially all of our meds that are either for Bunker Bravo or for the Port Lab, we drop in there. We have a whole chest dedicated to Genesis weapons, and I wish I had more. We're going to continue to grind those up. We get into our C4 and our like low tier-ish weapons, as well as our grenades, a whole bunch of flare guns, crossbows, some fun stuff in there. We've got our miniguns, more Winchesters, a whole bunch of M16s and our Glocks. And then we get to like probably my favorite weapon crate here, which is our maximum weapon crate, which is basically all the best weapons: AKs, shotguns, Uzis, SCARs, VSSs, and a whole bunch of grenade launchers, which is pretty cool. This is our melee weapon cabinet, which I'm just a fan of collecting scythes and these rippers, slashers, which is pretty cool. Normally I have a little bit more in here. This is also our attack armor and essentially our overflow for our coupons and some of our stuff for Bunker Alpha. And then shovels and utility things here. So hammers are used actually quite a bit for a lot of upgrades. You need some shovels for some different things and grinding some locations. Crowbars, ironically enough, are also used sometimes, and we have some torches here. We could probably minimize that stuff because most of that stuff is pretty easy to build, but we have it. Then we get into our armors here. We obviously have our kitchen, which we always have fish steaks ready to go, but we get into rack 1, which is essentially just some spare armor, anything that we're going to take up to cold areas, and our fish supplies, which makes sense because, again, like I said, I like these things to be close. Go to this, make it easy for ourselves. Here's our assortment of armor, but mainly our Raider armor and Kevlar armor, a little bit of overflow for some Seaburn armor. We've got a just entire rack dedicated to SWAT armor and some overflow for some Raider, or yeah, some Kevlar and some Seaburn armor there. We've got a full Seaburn armor set. That's what happens when you grind Port Laboratory a lot. You gain this stuff. I need to start using these things. I just honestly don't as much. Essentially, what this is our gas mask containment rack. We've got a whole bunch of those. And then this one's pretty cool. We've got some overflow with just some hazmat armor, but we have essentially like kind of just some unique items from some different and old events that came up. You don't see snorkel masks very often. These are the tank tops from the Blackport PD. We've got some red hats from previous Christmas events and things like that. Got a little bit of overflow with some supplies. Got some champagne, some B complex vitamins. They have talked about in the future about the level cap increasing. I'm really excited for that because we're just going to blow through that thing if that ends up becoming the case. So that part is pretty cool. This weapon crate right here is essentially our disassembly and or our weapon repair bench that we'll utilize over at the gas station. So we keep some things on hand there to be prepared for that. This essentially becomes our other work area spot. We dropped in our drone and our drone workbench. We've obviously got our warehouse here for a whole bunch of supplies. Our 2 wood benches are always working. This is kind of our you know, mining area plus our foods, kind of like sort of extra food storage, but more so foods that we're going to be crafting out on our garden beds, and a little bit of overflow, plus some seaweed, spices. Anything that we're going to get here is going to be, you know, things that we've gone out to locations and kind of farmed up. Obviously, our other workbenches here, our press. See, we've got our stonecutter workbenches, our sewing tables here. Got some old turrets that don't work, a mirror. And then the last three couple of chests here, racks that we have. One for furs, one for leathers, and for whatever this stuff is. Thick fabric, couldn't remember the name of it. Then we have our furs, some of our just regular pieces of cloth, and a whole bunch of rope. That's really how we're set up. That's the base kind of there in a nutshell. The electronics lab. Again, we have everything built that we can inside of the base here. We do have a mannequin with a set of armor, just as kind of showcase. And then we do have 3 of these, which are pretty cool, which we put some top end weapons into just to probably show off a little bit, I guess, or just to have on hand just in case anything crazy happens and we run out of weapons. I've always got a couple of weapon racks here. So, and then again, we've got some drying racks, all this stuff, the outhouse, the workbench, and just some fun things here. We're always making charcoal out of these, just constantly out of the campfire, just cranking that out. And then I've just been growing trees. Seems kind of fun. Oh, I had this guy dead. Oh, there's a lot of guys over here dead. What happened with this? Yeah, cool. I'll take some stuff. We've got our doggos here. We're full up on doggos, I believe. And I really only do the dogs when I need them to be upgraded. The nice part here is if you do start raising puppies is a pretty consistent task. You can raise the puppies, just don't actually raise them. And that's kind of a unique thing for a lot of folks. So we've got a whole bunch of pups that we're ready to breed and gonna crossbreed when that time comes. And yeah, that's essentially how our base here is set up. The other important thing is we have the welcome mat, and we have one empty space here right in the middle. That way when we drop in, the nice part for me is we drop in, I can drop armor, I can drop weapons off really quickly, I can drop spare meds or grab these things if I need them very quickly. And then obviously we got to run out to our chopper to get up and go in. So that's an overview of the base. Took a little bit longer than I anticipated, but hopefully give you a little bit of an idea again how we started to build and kind of continued to build out, kind of protected ourselves, have our sacrifice crate for the raids. And again, this took a long time. It took a really, really long time to get built up, get the supplies to be able to do a lot of these things, especially upgrade our racks here for additional storage. So that's been a consistent grind for me, heading to the swamp on a regular basis to continue to get ash and just kind of work that. So let me pop over to the settlement really quick. I'll just show you where I'm at with each of the locations if you haven't seen any of our settlement videos previously. This one is definitely more of a work in progress, and I want to continue to really grind this. I think there's going to be a lot of cool things that we're going to be able to do once we get this up to the top end, but this is what we're working on. So really quick on the outset here for kind of the spare buildings. Barracks, we're working towards level 3. Nice progress there, not too bad off. We've got the headquarters here, fully upgraded all the way. This was important to me to get access to all of the expeditions. So that's the first thing that I focused on when I started to get back into the settlement. We've got walls. I've talked about this previously. We're just waiting on the slate. I got to get these upgraded, but we will finish off walls to level 4 and then be done with those. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then garage here is working towards level 3. Difficult part here, we need more slate. That's the hardest grind. We need aluminum cables. I could actually probably fill this up and that wouldn't be too bad, but we're working towards garage level 3. We did recently do some upgrades. We maxed out for the garage at level 2. Level 19 is how far we can go before we can finish the upgrades. So I do, probably my next big focus for the settlement outside of getting the last watchtower completed is going to be getting garage up to level 3 so we can continue to modify and move up the minivan. That's important. I think this is going to be really big for us to get to the later ends of some of the tougher expeditions. In terms of the rest of this, we essentially have every generator built. We do have the water pump over here built and up and running, which is great. And then I'll just kind of talk you through really quickly. So Storehouse, we're sitting at level 2. We We need some frame floors. We can move this up to level 3 pretty quickly. Not really a focus. I think level 2 has enough storage for a lot of what we want to be able to do. Again, we've got everything kind of pallets built up. I'll really quickly just show you that we utilize kind of a very similar process here. Is I wanted a big base with a lot of opportunity, put some stuff down, and continue to build. Storehouse was important to have a lot of space because, again, we're going to continue to be able to build storage racks and the pallets and those things. You could definitely make this smaller just with the total amount of workbenches. I don't obviously have them all built because we are not complete with the settlement at this point, but we've got our storehouse here. We've got whatever this one is. I never remember the assembly part, but we have essentially mirrored everything up so that it shares walls. That is a really important piece, and I really highly suggest to do that, especially as you go to upgrade, because you want your upgrades, especially for your walls here, to be shared by two different areas inside of your settlement base. That part is really important. You do need to keep some space open for some generators, so do keep that in mind. We keep a couple of open spaces here. The least amount of aluminum cable you need to make wiring, the better. And so the closer you can put it to multiple buildings or multiple areas of your settlement, the better off you're obviously going to be. So this is how we have our setup. Again, I think we could make it probably just a bit smaller, but this was nice to have some room, and we've got everything connected. And I actually really don't mind our layout at this point. So that's kind of how we're set up. But we've got our storehouse here. We're going to run over, I can't remember what this one is called. Assembly, I was right. So we're moving towards assembly level 4. We have this up to level 3. We needed that essentially to be able to do the pipe rolling machine and get that going. And then we have here the welding bench, which will let us get some of these final things done. But this is not a huge priority for us at this point either. Got all of our benches built. We jump over here to whatever this one is called, the workshop. And we are moving this one towards level 4 as well. We needed this one to get up to level 3. We needed the lathe specifically because we need to be able to cut metal parts and do a handful of things there. So it was good that we got that upgraded. We'll jump over here. Wood shop. Wood shop is probably the next thing on the list to get upgraded. But we're working towards frame walls and frame floors. This one is at level 3, moving towards level 4. So this one was a big one for us to be able to get done. So that we could get essentially this pressing machine done, and we could get the chipboard. This was really important. We needed a chipboard to continue to move us forward in the settlement, and essentially get this area, the foundry, up to level 4. That's really at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to do, because I need to be able to make both copper wire and iron rods to finish off the last of the watchtowers. So we're very close. We just need a handful of these things. Just need to get walls to level 4, and this will be all the way upgraded to level 4. So I'm pretty excited about that. So that is our settlement here in a nutshell. And we've done some good mercenary progress. I'm not going to touch on that as we jump back over here. Yeah, hopefully this was good. A little bit longer explanation for the base and the layout as we have it set up, but that's what we've got rocking and rolling. So if you have any questions, if you're looking for any tips in terms of how to do base building or anything like that, please drop them down in the comments below. Certainly here to help. I hope this look was helpful for you as well in terms of just getting an idea of how you could set your base up, the kind of space you're going to need, because again, we have basically, except for the settlement, for the home base, we have everything built in terms of storage and workbenches and those kinds of things, outside a handful of specialty workbench or specialty storage that I don't have access to, either from a season reward or different event or from Port Lab, because I'm still waiting on the med cabinet. But hopefully this was helpful for you. Hopefully you enjoyed this really quick look at what we got going on. If you're not at this point, I'm just going to say this again. If you're not at this point with this game, do not be afraid or scared or feel like you're behind or anything. It's a single player game. Take your time. This game is a grind. If you've played it for more than a little bit, you know that that's the case. So just keep grinding your materials, keep building things up, take advantage of the events, right? Be smart where you can with your materials and your supplies. Hit your locations often. do the events, utilize the events for the season as efficiently as you can. If you are willing to spend a little bit of money, I really truly the only thing I recommend spending money on is the season rewards. I do think that track is pretty good. It's relatively reasonable. If you can't spend money, continue to grind anyways, because you're still going to get some season rewards from the free track. That's a great way to get some weapons and some gear. And again, don't measure yourself against me or any of the other YouTubers or anybody else that you watch that plays this game, because again, for most of us, we've probably been playing the game for a really long time. We've had an opportunity to stack some things up. Once you get to a section of gear, you're going to be surprised that you can actually continue to replicate that with not some ease. It takes time, it takes energy, it's still a grind. For us, getting weapons is still a grind. We're going to the bunker every time it resets, using our coupons. Right now, I'm on almost a 6-day raiding streak. One, because I like raiding and I want to build our raid database, but two, because that's a really good way to get some materials. But you got to get to that point first. You got to be able to get some C4. You got to have some options to be able to go and do that, so you can be successful in those things. So I just want to close with that. I also want to just close by flashing some socials, saying thank you so much for all the support on the channel. I truly do appreciate it. I hope you've been enjoying the Last Day on Earth content. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not subscribed, please consider it. We're trying to stay really consistent with our Last Day on Earth content and even give you more. Hopefully you're enjoying some of the raids. I think they'll be up by this point, but if they're not, they will be coming soon as we build our raid database. So just thanks for being here. Really, I truly mean it. Thank you for helping us grow the channel. We're moving towards 1,000 subs, which is really cool. And I just can't say thank you enough for all of that. So with that, I'm going to close this one out. Doc Average Gamer, guys. Thank you so much again for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.